We take refuge in God from the cursed Satan. Pesmelahim, in the name of God, the compassionate and the merciful. Once again, with emotional intelligence, I know that many brothers are following us in the lessons of emotional intelligence because it is a quite important matter. Every person needs to develop their emotional intelligence to achieve success. In the previous lessons, we talked about how emotional intelligence means being able to develop the intellectual part that controls emotions, affections, and feelings. This helps me in many areas of life, in many aspects of life. It helps me to be a successful person. We have explained how being responsible will help me control my feelings. Emotional intelligence will shape you into a responsible person. We have also explained how it helps you to have a positive outlook on the world, removing pessimism and helping you see reality as it is, without premonitions, without resentment, without problems, and without prejudices. This helps you achieve success. Today we are going to talk about another advantage of emotional intelligence. Can a person who develops their emotional intelligence also develop their personal skills and virtues in their life? Like that, look, after getting to know myself, my feelings, what affects me sentimentally, and what affects me emotionally, I have come to understand myself well. Then I can plan to develop the skills that I have. A person who has developed emotional intelligence, which is all based on practice, will first learn that lesson on how to manage emotional intelligence and develop emotional intelligence. You will learn it and then put it into practice. Knowing it doesn't help you, practicing it helps you. Then you will develop emotional intelligence, which serves as the foundation for developing your personal skills. A person who knows themselves then recognizes the less developed potential skills that can help them in their success. Therefore, when they study themselves, they will begin a plan to manage themselves emotionally, to handle their motives towards these. We can say that the development of skills, for example, I have a capacity that God has given me, a gift for learning languages. Imagine, it is not from the Pentecostals, from the Holy Spirit that suddenly you come and speak in tongues. No, it is a skill, a gift that God has given you, and you can learn languages. Or that capacity that all human beings have to learn languages may not be as developed in some people, but for your success, you need to learn a language. Now, you lack sufficient motivation, you don't have enough motivation, and you will never learn it. However, you know that, for example, if you learn Persian, English, I don't know, Arabic, it can open up other areas in your business, in your trade, in your studies, in your work, in whatever it may be. So many people, due to a lack of emotion and motivation, never come to develop that skill, that ability to learn languages, and thus they always remain on the sidelines and will never achieve success. But when you have emotional intelligence well developed, you say to yourself, look, I have that ability. I need to learn a language. I lack motivation. Very well, I already know myself, and I realize that I lack motivation, so I come to study myself. Why do I lack motivation? What happened to me that prevents me from learning languages? What do I need? When I go to study, I encounter many, we could say, setbacks, mental obstacles that are preventing me from starting to study languages. What are these obstacles? Look, when I was, for example, a child, the language teacher treated me badly in school and made me hate the language, for instance. Or, I don't know, in grades. When I was taking end-of-year exams, I failed the language exam. I hate English. I hate it completely. So, from then on, I always hated that lesson, because later when I got home, my father hit me quite a bit and scolded me. I don't know. He criticized me. My mother got angry because I had failed that subject 2001. So that hatred has been deeply rooted in my emotional part. When a person has developed emotional intelligence, they say, I know how to manage myself well. I know how to remove hatred. There is an inner formula of the human being that is the formula for managing hate. And love is manageable. Everything that is hate is manageable. Hatred can be removed, hatred can be developed, love can be diminished, and love can be increased towards anything. You can decide today to love something or to hate something, but there is a process, a mental process, a psychological process. Through that process, you can come to love or to hate. And there is a science, or rather, there is a well-developed study on how to manage human motivations, which, God willing, in the following classes, we will explain each step of how you can do it. So maybe some person says that's a miracle. It's not a miracle, brother. It's possible. Are they doing it in Hollywood, for example? In many Hollywood movies, they are putting hatred, Islamophobia into your head. Where does it come from? Why? Every person who sees me, many times this has happened to me in Latin America, is my personal experience. When they see me with a turban, with a beard, with the cloak, then many people say, oh, look, Mr. Bin Laden, I don't know what. Why? Where does that hatred come from? That hatred is the fruit of a plant, sown by Hollywood and by the lying Zionist news outlets, among others. So they manage it. They manage the hatred. They manage the love. Nowadays, how many groups that say we love Israel actually love it amidst genocide? They say that we don't care that Israel is committing genocide. We don't care that Israel is killing animals in their homes. We don't care about anything. What does that mean? When love has been manipulated and placed in the heart of a person, misinterpreting the teachings of the Old Testament, assuming that, for example, the Jewish people are the chosen people of God, and so gradually instilling that love in those people, developing it through many movies. And from there, the person suddenly opens their eyes, sees that they love Israel, love a Zionist regime, mata nino, genocide, and on the other side, they are hating Muslims, hating sacred books, or hating everything that belongs to God. Just imagine, for example, nowadays, initially, about 30 years ago, in the island of Cuba, every person who was presumed to be gay was persecuted, imprisoned, and faced a lot of other things. But nowadays, imagine in Cuba, what is happening in other countries in Latin America is the same. In one day, gays are considered abominable for a practice that the Bible states in Leviticus 18 and also in 22 considers abominable. So something so abominable that people hated it. Little by little, by managing people's emotions, they led it. Nowadays, it's the opposite. If you are a homophobe, it is a disadvantage. You have a vice. But being homophobic is not a vice. He is afraid of homosexuals because they are afraid. No, they are not such terrible people as they seem. They are all different. They are good people, gay pride, etc. Imagine we in real life are seeing that hate and love are being managed by the media. If the media is handling it, they have a use and formula for managing hate and love. If you can learn that formula, you can also manage the hatred and love of people. It is not talking about reality. Reality is very clear. The reality, the truth is very clear. A practice is a practice, for example, an abominable one. It leads you to hell, it is a sin, it dirties the heart, it takes away your spiritual life, and that is the homosexual practice. That is the reality you sand. But how to reflect reality and manage the emotions of the people? This is quite clear. Another example I can give you is managing elections. Democracy is not what the US, the empire, seeks, but they have learned through that science called emotional intelligence. How to manage the emotions of the people, thus directing democracy wherever they want. So in a country where there is democracy but no American influence, for them democracy is worth nothing. Like Iran, my country Persia, in Iran, all authorities have been elected democratically, either directly or indirectly by the people, but that democracy is worthless. Why? Because the management, the key to managing the emotions of that people, is not in the hands of the Queringos, which is why they are not valuable. They say, you give me the complex, that's fine. When democracy is in my hands and the media to brainwash, to manipulate the emotions of the people is in my hands, that's okay. So that democracy is indeed democracy. Why? Because through the influx of money, through the influence of, we can say, influential people, I can manipulate democracy to fill my own pockets. So then, democracy is welcome, as long as they accept it. For example, if in Venezuela, a person is going to be the legal constitutional president of the country through the people's vote. But this is not in favor of the gringos. It is wrong. So the gringos make all the conspiracies and don't care about the kinds of things they can do against a worthy people like the people of Venezuela. They do it to take everything away. Why? Because it has a democracy, but it is not included in the emotional management package of the US that they, for example, the US cannot manage everything to put into people's heads what they want. So we have reached this point. It is clear that you can develop the emotions that can help us achieve success, or if you let others control you, you end up watching television, that garbage, full of, we can say, infernal things, which will make it easier for you to sin. It means little by little, instead of developing the skills and emotions that lead you to be a successful person, a successful community, it leads a community to total decay because they are being controlled. Brother, there is no option. Either you take charge of managing your emotions, or they come to manage you, because emotions exist. It's like the helm of a ship. You either take hold of it or you let it go. If you take hold and are willing to resist, you can steer yourself, your ship, your life, and your direction. But if you let it go, there are many currents in the water that will take control of you, and you may end up facing total annihilation. So we see where social networks, mental influence networks, universities, and other things are in their hands. So we are going to see the moral decay step by step as it gradually infiltrates a community. For example, homosexuality, men allowing their wives to be with another man in the name of sexual freedom, among other things, which will ultimately lead to the destruction of the family, the destruction of the family unit, the destruction of everything that represents the spiritual advantages of human life. They are attacking him. And little by little there will be that pharaonic policy that the sacred Quran speaks of, the Pharaoh of Egypt. Yes, he also managed emotions. The Holy Quran says that Pharaoh had a policy to develop the emotional skills of the children of Israel. He made them feel undervalued, made them feel that the truth is that they are inferior and that it is worth leaving themselves in the hands of Pharaoh's colony so that they could be colonized. Then the people feel undervalued. I was in a country in Latin America, on their national television, the actors, undervalued by them to be honest, because they had that feeling of inferiority, a lack of personality. They would come and make jokes, insulting their own people. Like, for example, yes, I was in a country where I saw a thief. Imagine what country it was. Yes, it was a fellow countryman of mine. And that is not funny, belittling your country, saying that if you saw a thief in a foreign country, he was also one of yours. What is that? Why is it necessary in these social networks, in the media, to make the people feel undervalued, inferior to the Quairingos. Why? Because when you manage that emotion, it can get into their heads that you are inferior, that you need a master, a gringo boss. They then control the elections in your country. They then control the education in your country. The elite universities must go study in the US, etc., etc. So through this management of emotions, they are managing the world. Let's see if you can learn. We have said, take the helm of your life. Take the helm of managing your emotional intelligence, and there you say, I decide for myself, I must be successful, I will face all obstacles, and I will be the successful person in family life, in social life, and I will change the destiny of my people. When you feel this way, then start to work. A person who has that faith, that confidence, begins to fight. The struggle is an intellectual struggle. Nowadays, when we talk about the struggle, it is not the struggle of weapons. Imagine, the person who raises a weapon, just as in the Gospels, will be annihilated. Today, our struggle is an intellectual struggle. Take care. The person who today has the word, the logic, and is managing the media is handling the emotional intelligence of the people. If the emotions of the people are in their hands, that person already has success. Not the person who operates the aircraft or the person who has aircraft carriers. Nowadays, the US is lost. Why? Because little by little, through these social networks in this global field, people are connecting and awakening. This means that little by little, the US is losing its influence on the intellectual emotion of the people. Then the peoples of the world are emerging from negligence. When you lose negligence, you open your eyes and go in search of the truth. When you seek the truth, you will understand that God has created you in His image. You have a divine spirit and deserve to be the authority of your own success. Then you will emerge from the lack of responsibility. Let me tell you something. One day, a French politician arrived in Iran. In a discussion we had with him, do you know what he said? And he criticized us for why in Iran they do not allow nightclubs or places that sell alcohol. Why are there none? Why do they not allow it? And then we asked him why he thinks these nightclubs are necessary. And he said, if you leave the young people, look, a French politician, I won't name him, when you leave the young people in an intellectual life, they will start to see the truth and come to criticize us. So that promotes, since they are young people with a lot of energy, they are going to make many youth movements against the politicians. So we always manage the emotional intelligence of young people to entertain and keep them occupied, focusing on their interests, which revolve around the navel and below the navel. The only thing that matters to them is how to spend the end of the night, with whom to have sex, porn, etc. This young man will never be a revolutionary youth because he is so focused on these carnal needs, and the more you get into it and drink seawater, which is salty, the thirstier you will become. A person with more thirst will suffer more, and then they always have their heads stuck in these things. If you have young people in video games, they will never leave the video games. The only thing that matters to them is how to get to the next level and how, to win this video game. So in football and everything that can occupy the minds of young people, managing the emotions of the youth, ensuring they do not get involved in politics, and that they do not criticize the colonizers, that is the best. Then that French politician said, we always have it. Among the tactics and strategies we have is to keep the youth in vices so that they never come to think about what we are imposing on them, their people, and their country. So, when there are more nightlife spots, when there is more corruption, more gays, more lesbians, more LGBT, LGTB, etc., etc. So we are going to have emotions from young people, caught up in vices, and all vices will lead to addiction. And addiction is such a strong tendency that it doesn't let you take off to go see what is happening, what is going on, what it is doing to you. This is another of the politicians of Pharaoh mentioned in the Holy Quran, which states that Pharaoh killed the males and kept the females, stripping them of their modesty and leading them into vices, so that when a woman becomes corrupt, she can corrupt society. For this reason, it is becoming more fashionable every day to walk around more naked, to be more shameless. That is the colonizing politics that manipulates the emotions of the people. It then leads the youth to an irresponsible life, a social irresponsibility. I don't care who has stolen natural resources. Why should I care? Why should I get involved in those matters? It's just that I'm already in trouble with my boyfriend, with my girlfriends, etc., etc. Let's see, what God has demanded of us is to manage our emotions. The believer on the day of judgment must answer for what they have loved and for what they have hated. So you must manage within the religious concept. You must manage your emotions. You cannot leave the helm of your life in someone else's hands. Therefore, you must enrich your life with a plan, a well-developed plan. How many years are you going to last? Are you 70 years old? 80 years old? How much life do you have left? Are you young now? 20 years old? 30 years old? 40 years old? How much time is left? 20, 30. For what you have left in life, you should have a plan. A third of your life you're asleep. Another third you should spend on necessary things, right? For eating, for going to the doctor, I don't know, etc. You will have almost a third left within your will, what you can manage. So, if I have spent 30 years of my life, yes, then 2/3 of it is practically lost. I have 10 years left. For what? To change the world, and you can do it. So little by little, having that faith, that certainty, you will never lose motivation. What this means is that emotional intelligence helps you to develop. Because when you encounter an obstacle, the obstacle is not going to control your emotions to inject disappointment into you. No, no. When there are more obstacles, this will awaken more vigor, more courage to fight, and more resilience. When you are more resilient, you are more unbreakable. No one can easily break you. You will become more resilient. Then you will make an effort to understand your abilities. You already know that you can manage your skills, and you will study them. A community will study its capabilities. How can we be the most sovereign people in the world? We can be, but with dignity. We are not going to steal wealth from other peoples. We are not going to be like the gringos. We are not going to be like the European colonizers. No, no. This path is not a dignified path. It is undignified. The path of thieves is undignified. Let us see a worthy path that respects the values of life, that respects the family, and that respects love in the world. So with this realistic vision, you can understand yourself, your people, you will develop yourself, you will become a great leader, and you will develop your own people. So the final word, emotional intelligence, is the key to success. But it has the steps that we will cover in the next videos. We look forward to your comment, brother. Think about what we have said. Write to us what you think. It helps us to prepare better for other talks. God bless you. A hug. May the peace and blessing of God be with everyone.